This wasn't a debate about border security. It was a fight over whether enforcing the law is now considered a political offense in Washington. What looked like a routine Senate hearing quickly turned into something far more revealing, not just about border policy, but about how sharply divided Washington still is over the meaning of law, accountability, and political intent.
You pretty much secured the southern border, haven't you?
Yes, sir. The CBP,
And
that
that upsets some of my colleagues, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. They say you've done it the wrong way, haven't they? Mm-hmm. Could you answer that?
Yes, sir. They do say that.
Do you think they're upset because you supposedly did it the wrong way, or you think they're upset that you did it at all?
I think they're upset that by President Trump enforcing the law, it happened so quickly and successfully.
Yeah. Now, when President Biden came into office, the first thing he did was get rid of all of the things we were doing to stop people from coming into our country illegally, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, it was like the Price is Right. Come on down. Except he said, come on in. And most of my Democratic colleagues went along with that, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they did.
In fact, they cheered him on, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
How many people do you think President Biden let into our country illegally? Just give me a ballpark figure.
Sir, we don't know for certain, but we believe it could be upwards to 20 million people that are illegally in this country.
So that's like adding 10 Nebraskas to our country, isn't it?
That's correct.
Why do you think President Biden and my Democratic colleagues did that? Do you think they believe in open borders?
I think they believed in open borders and letting people come into this country that would affect our society and criminals. Those other countries emptying out the worst of the worst, their mental institutions, their prisons came in here and jeopardized, and known terrorists.
Well, only one or two circumstances are possible, it seems to me. Either President Biden and the Democrats who supported him believe in open borders, or the people that President Biden put in charge of securing the border, you wouldn't trust to run a snowball stand. Right?
That is correct.
So nobody is that incompetent. So it has to be, they just believe in open borders, do they not?
Yes, because I know the people who were securing the border and they weren't allowed to do their job.
Do you think they believe that vetting people at the border is racist?
Yes, I do. I think by the way they allowed people in and granted them immediate parole status.
Do you think that President Biden and some of my Democratic colleagues, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, Madam Secretary, thought of these foreign nationals in our country illegally as potential new voters?
I do, sir.
Okay. If you're an ordinary American and you oppose illegal immigration, but you support legal immigration, does that make you a racist?
No, sir. No, sir, not at all. It just means that you believe there should be a rule of law, and that's what America was built on.
And that's what you've been enforcing, right?
Exactly. We have been following the Constitution and the rule of law in this country.
And I want to be sure I understand, because there's been a lot of confusing testimony here. You've secured the border, have you not?
This administration has, yes, sir.
And some of my colleagues are upset with you.
Yes, sir.
And they say you did it wrong.
Yes, sir.
And do you agree with me that what they're really upset about is that you did it at all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you a last question about our federal judiciary. I've said repeatedly that all of us has a moral and a civic obligation to follow federal orders, and I stand by that. But there have been a lot of national injunctions, universal injunctions issued to try to stop you from doing your job. Where were these judges when people were breaking the law? and coming into our country illegally? Were any of them speaking up and issuing national injunctions against the Democrats?
I don't believe I can be specific about every single judge, but these judges that now are trying to stop us from enforcing our laws, I don't believe or recall them.
Can you
being
think,
vocal then.
Madam Secretary, of one single solitary federal judge who, when President Biden and my Democratic colleagues, not all of them, but many of them,
Gentleman's time has expired.
Secretary or Senator Murray went on over about 2 minutes, so I'm going to take a minute.
Senator
Well,
Van
if
Hollen
you
just got
can-
shut down.
Yes,
right
if
on
you
the
can,
zeros.
if you can finish your question.
Can you recall one single solitary federal judge when President Biden and my Democratic colleagues were letting 20 million people come into the country illegally?
I don't recall.
Can you think of
Thank
one
you.
single solitary judge
you.
that issued
more
a
than-
national
This is
injunction
more than
to
one
stop
question.
them?
No, I can't recall
I
one.
can't either.
Senator John Kennedy didn't come to this hearing to extract new data points. He came to lock in a narrative, and he did it the way he often does, by asking a series of tightly framed yes or no questions that forced the witness into a clear position. From the outset, Kennedy established his core claim that the southern border is now secured under the current administration, and that the backlash against Secretary Kristi Noem isn't about process, but about results. His argument was simple. If enforcement worked, and it worked quickly, then the anger must be about the enforcement itself. If you want deeper, clearer breakdowns like this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future coverage. But the exchange went further than that. Kennedy used the contrast between administrations to underline a broader political accusation. He argued that when President Biden took office, border enforcement tools were dismantled almost immediately, creating what he described as an open invitation to illegal crossings. Whether viewers agree or not, the point he was making was about responsibility. Policy choices have consequences, and those consequences don't vanish just because intentions are debated. Subscribe to stay informed as we continue unpacking how those decisions shape real outcomes. The most striking moment came when Kennedy pressed for a rough estimate of how many people entered the country illegally during the Biden years. Noem cited figures as high as 20 million, a number that, if accurate, would represent one of the largest population shifts tied to federal policy in modern history. Kennedy's comparison, adding the equivalent of 10 Nebraskas to the country, wasn't just rhetorical flair. It was meant to help viewers visualize scale, because numbers alone often fail to register emotionally. This is exactly the kind of context we focus on here, so subscribe if you value explanations that go beyond headlines. From there, the conversation moved into motive, and this is where the exchange became especially charged. Kennedy framed two possibilities. Either the administration believed in open borders, or it was catastrophically incompetent. By eliminating incompetence as implausible, he pushed the conclusion that ideology drove the policy. Noem agreed, adding claims about criminal elements and national security risks. Whether one accepts that framing or challenges it, the key takeaway is how immigration has become less about operational debate and more about moral judgment. If you want continued coverage that explains how these arguments are constructed, hit subscribe. Another critical clarification came when Kennedy addressed a question many Americans quietly ask but rarely hear answered directly. Does opposing illegal immigration while supporting legal immigration make someone racist? Noem's response was unequivocal. She framed enforcement as a defense of the rule of law, not an expression of prejudice. That distinction matters because much of the national conversation collapses nuance into accusation, leaving citizens feeling mislabeled or unheard. Subscribe to stay with us as we keep separating policy disagreement from personal attack. The hearing then shifted to the judiciary, and this is where viewers learn something subtle but important. Kennedy pointed out the rise of nationwide injunctions used to block enforcement actions, asking why similar judicial urgency wasn't visible when laws were allegedly being ignored in the opposite direction. The implication was not just about judges, but about institutional consistency. Are courts neutral arbiters, or do they respond differently depending on who holds power? That question goes to the heart of public trust, and we'll continue examining it, so make sure you subscribe. As the gavel finally came down and time expired, the tension in the room told its own story. This wasn't just a partisan clash. It was a snapshot of a system struggling to agree on first principles: what the law is, who must follow it, and who gets to enforce it. And until those questions are answered honestly, these confrontations will keep happening, louder and sharper each time.